Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking. Oh, we're gonna do what they say can't be done. We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm eastbound, just watch old Bandit run. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, speeding towards the sun as we drive to defeat those who want to tear America down. How you doing?
I'm doing great. That's right. We're heading for the mountains right now. Seriously. Yeah. We're out of our underground bunker and we're on what do you call it? On location.
Yes.
On location. Jay, question for you.
Yes.
Who sings that? I can't even
Really?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Oh, it took a little detour doing a little country this week.
That was country?
Yeah, Jerry Reed from
Really?
Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah.
Eastbound and down.
Didn't you used to date her? Yeah, okay, yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
All right, I did not know that. The song is vaguely familiar now,
Yes.
but I did not know that. Jay, question
Yes.
here. We're going to jump right in. We're going to jump right in. I got a Dukes of Hazzard question for you, first of all.
Okay.
I follow John Schneider and Tom Wopat
yeah.
on Twitter.
Okay.
And Tom Wopat put out there an interesting query that you Dukes of Hazzard fans, because I can't decide between these two, had a poll question about Denver Pyle, who played Uncle Jesse.
Yes.
Said, what is your favorite Uncle Jesse quote of Dukes of Hazzard? Now, I have two, and I can't decide between the two.
Huh.
Because one of them I say all the time, and I credit Uncle Jesse for it.
Yes.
I always say this, and my nephew always looks at me kind of funny, but Uncle Jesse used to say, hey, where in tarnation have you guys been?
Yes.
So I always say that to my nephews. Where in tarnation have you guys been? And I credit Uncle Jesse for that. And I also, Uncle Jesse had a quote that a stranger is just a friend you ain't met yet.
Oh, yeah.
So do you have an Uncle Jesse quote, being the great
goodness.
Dukes of Hazzard fan that you are?
It's been a long time since I've seen the show.
Oh, I just saw some yesterday.
I am a fan, yes. I grew up and I watched every season, even the one with the
phony guys.
Yeah, Cherry and...
I don't know what it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Coy and
doesn't
Vance.
matter. Coy and Vance, that's what
All
it is.
I know is I've never seen two fish out of water more than those two guys.
Oh, boy.
Poor guys, though. I mean, that was... What a dumb decision to bring in two clones.
Yeah.
Anyhow, so you don't have an Uncle Jesse quote?
Oh, goodness. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
I'll tell you something. I made a deal with the federal government. For these, I'm not jeopardizing these boys' probation. JD, you can go down to the bank and see that blah, 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 blah. Uncle Jesse got riled up. That was always good. That was always good.
He reminded me of my late, great Uncle Glenn a lot. Just the way that he would talk and the...
There's always... Uncle Jesse's like Archie Bunker. You can always relate. You always got a relative like them.
Right.
Okay, Jay, we're going to play history lesson today.
Oh, boy, that's right. We're recording this and it's October, so I get...
Beginning of October.
I get dates thrown at me that I have no idea what they are.
I think you've got a good, and I know you hate it. I hate it when you do this to me with the music.
Yeah.
But I got a feeling you may get one or two today.
Yeah?
I just got that feeling.
Okay.
I don't think you'll get the first one. But I'm going to ask it anyway. Jay, October 1st. This is in the sports world.
Okay.
October 1st, 1903.
Okay.
Can you tell me what happened on that date in the sports world? Now, keep in mind, only a handful of sports were around then.
Right, and baseball would have been going and football would have been going.
Now, the Duluth Eskimos might have been playing. I'm not sure.
That's true.
But yeah.
Yes. It's probably baseball related because I know you and I know what time of year it is. It is playoffs, so
it is. It means the Twins are at home.
And that doesn't mean they're
not
home
playing
stadium.
at home. Yeah, no.
They're playing the home version of their game.
No, they're on the sofa with a spring sticking out of it.
Not rented, because at least, with the money they make,
they
can own the sofa.
They got a sofa for each day of the week.
Yes. Oh, boy. So, 1903, I'm going to say that the Yankees won the World Series.
Yankees' first World Series was 1923 that they won.
Really?
But you are on the right track. I'm going to give you a quarter of a point.
Huh.
That was the first game of the first ever World Series between the Boston Red Sox and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bonus question.
Yes.
So it's the Honus Wagner Pirates.
Pittsburgh Pirates, the best hats in all of baseball.
The old ones.
Yes, the old ones. The old soft-sided ones. Absolutely.
Yeah, the Willie Stargell kind of hat.
Yes.
Do you know who gave up the first World Series home run that year? Oh, you probably don't know.
No.
That'd be Cy Young.
Really?
First Worlds from the Red Sox.
Wow.
First. I'm trying to think. What's more likely? What's the more unbreakable baseball record right now? Cy Young's 511 wins, or the Twins' 18-game postseason losing streak? I'm wondering.
I think the Twins might break it. So I don't think it's the Twins' record.
Somebody will get.
They're going to make it 19.
50, yeah. Twins will break their own record. Okay. Yeah. Somebody will hit 490 before the Twins win a postseason game. Okay.
Yes.
Second, October 1st. This is another sports one, but you may have a chance at this one.
Okay.
October 1st, 1975. Something very, very famous happened in the sports world that day. Jay, and it is not baseball related. Can you guess that?
October 1st, 1975.
Yes.
Okay, well, I know it wasn't Rocky losing to Apollo Creed. That was on Christmas.
That was Thanksgiving,
wasn't it Thanksgiving?
Rocky 2, it was Thanksgiving, New Year's Day, and Rocky 1.
No, it was Christmas and Christmas Eve and Rocky.
Christmas was Rocky 4.
Was it?
Don't argue with me about this. Yo, Paul.
I'm terrible with dates.
Okay, I'll spill it.
Okay, so
no, you want
75.
To take a guess?
So October 2nd, 1975.
October 1st.
October 1st. Good thing, because that would have thrown me off.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, well, me and dates.
Against Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
And Muhammad Ali won. That was the third fight.
Right.
They both kind of killed each other. So the Thrilla in Manila was that day 45 years ago, Jay. Okay, now I'm gonna put it in your wheelhouse.
All right.
In the entertainment world. Can you tell me what happened on that day? Not that long ago. 25 years ago this week.
Again, I'm terrible with dates. Is that the date that Kurt Cobain died?
No, that was 1994.
94. I was off by a year. I remember I played a gig that night I was in college. It was at my college, actually.
Yeah.
And that was a sad day. I've had this bad luck where, well, maybe because I play a lot of gigs, that I'm playing a lot of nights that important people die, and so it's strange to be able to look.
So do you remember them because you had a gig, or do you remember? Sometimes you remember where you are. I'll never forget where I was 9/11.
Yeah.
I was at a gas station in Minneapolis when the radio cut into Dr. Laura, and
yeah, I was on vacation back in Duluth at my mom's house, but gosh, yeah, because I remember, I played the night that Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots passed away, when Chester from Lincoln Park passed away. Yeah, so I know that I.
Okay. It's not a death.
No. So 1995. That would have been when music started to go bad.
Well,
that's more like around 96.
All right, 95 was a decent year.
95 was still okay.
I graduated high school, it was still decent music.
It was still okay.
Okay, Jay, I'm going to spill it.
All right.
It was the day the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened in Cleveland, Ohio.
Really? It's only that old?
Yes. Maybe it was their new building with their downtown project.
Oh, okay.
But it opened that. Oh, how did it end up in Cleveland? Do you know that? Why not just put it in Gary, Indiana?
Well,
Who picked
You'd have
Cleveland?
to ask the people at Rolling Stone because Rolling Stone magazine owns the.
Okay, it might be their new
Rock and Roll Hall of
building, the
Fame.
new building now, but it was the big thing that came up when I was researching these
Okay.
dates. Okay, 2 more quick ones.
Yes.
October 3rd, 1995.
Okay.
You might remember where you were when this happened.
October 2nd, 1995.
October 3rd, 1995. Same year, next day.
Word.
Something very, very famous happened that day.
October 1995. That was.
It's in
was
the-
that
it's in the-
Woodstock
it's-
when they redid the? No,
That's
that
99.
was too early. That was 99.
It's in the world of, in the courtroom world.
Oh, I see. I'm still in the music vein. That would obviously that's O.J. Simpson then.
The day he was acquitted was October 3rd.
It was the day he was acquitted.
1995, the day that criminal was let out of jail.
Yes.
To this day, I don't know if it's good or bad to know, Jay, that if I have somebody's blood in my car and home, I can still somehow get away with murder. I mean, is that
Well,
is
you
that
got to
a
have
good
millions
thing?
of dollars to
I don't know. Were his
buy
lawyers
great
that
lawyers. Well, I don't know.
I mean, Johnny Cochran was a good lawyer, but
Yeah.
F. Lee Bailey, the only big cases he ever handled, he lost. The Boston Massacre
Yeah.
and Patty Hearst. For the
Yeah.
Boston Strangler. And,
Yeah.
And the Patty Hearst case. I don't know. See that? Bob Shapiro, he never handled a murder case. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyhow, whatever. That was. Now, here I got the last one. This is
Okay.
going to be it's another entertainment one. What happened on October 9th, 1981 that you may not believe?
I may not believe.
Be in the television world.
Was that when Johnny Carson retired?
No, that was 1992.
Ah,
You're only 11 years off.
only 11.
I remember in the 80s, my mom and dad staying up on Friday nights to watch Johnny Carson.
Yeah. Television world. Well,
Jay, you're tailgating this guy.
I am not.
Do you know or not know? I
Goodness.
give you more time than...
I don't know.
Okay, CBS that night ran 2 episodes of The Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
And The Dukes of Hazzard for that night was the #1 show on television. October 9th,
Yeah.
1981.
Wow.
It reached #1
Yeah.
that night.
Wow.
Beginning of season 4.
Huh.
The year before Coy and Vance, before everything got good, right?
All right.
Okay, now.
Oh boy.
Okay, so there once again, I'll give you the O.J. Simpson one, and I guess you kind of got the World Series and Muhammad Ali. I mean, you did. I did have to give you the sport.
Well, I did go to boxing before you told me it was boxing,
That was your third guess, wasn't
and it was a movie.
And you said baseball after I said it wasn't baseball. Whatever.
Again, I'm driving. I'm
Yeah,
trying to keep us alive here.
Well,
so
if I can die when you get the wrong answer, it's okay. All right.
we have important work to do. I got to keep you alive.
Yeah, incidentally, by the way,
Yes.
before we get into what we're going to talk about, what is my contract status going? I only have a contract through episode 199. So what's going to happen? Are we going to quit?
No,
We're going to keep going?
I'm all in.
Ugh.
My work here is not done.
All right, I'll keep. I'm not eligible for free agency yet. It's still another arbitration here.
No, you're a restricted free agent. I'm sorry.
All right, well, Jay, like
Yes.
we said, fun things to talk about tonight.
Oh, you know it.
Always fun things. I mean, Jay, we've heard a lot this election cycle about mail-in voting, early voting,
Oh, yes.
blah, 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 blah. And I'm really not, we're really not debating that so much. I think that...
It is what it is. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't, but there are consequences to it.
Oh, yes.
And I think that one of the problems we've had in talking about it, and it just kind of boggles my mind, is everybody talks about it in terms of the presidential race or some big race. But in actuality, the races it affects the most are the races that we talk about.
Yes, absolutely.
The local races. I mean...
So, yeah, you have all these people that are thinking about federal races, they're thinking about state races, and who can get the greatest advantage by, going as early as possible.
Well, and here's the problem, okay?
Yes.
The old way of thinking, and basically we're going to get into what we think people need to do and change the calendar and all that.
Yeah.
And of course, we're community solutions here.
Right.
So of course we have ideas and what we'd like to see, and I think this is something that certainly the legislature has to address, and not in the makeshift way that they've done it right now.
Yeah.
Because right now it's just a disaster. But here's the thing. The first thing is you've got a primary, okay,
Right.
in August. Some people don't even file for office until late July and early August. And you're voting in September. Okay?
Yeah.
So now you might think, okay, well, if you're thinking of it in terms of like the Trump-Biden race, well, they've been running for years and years and years. But we all know, and we've all talked about, the down-the-ballot stuff is the stuff that people pay attention to the least, and they should pay attention to the most.
Absolutely.
So what happens to those races? I mean, you have a debate in a city on October 15th, a month after people started voting.
Right.
Or whatever it is, 3 weeks, or
Well, I mean, even, at a federal level, you didn't have the first presidential debate until
yeah, a couple nights ago.
a couple nights ago.
And you have the last one on October 22nd.
When a lot of people have voted already.
Yeah, I know, and it varies state to state. I mean, it does. But I saw a statistic in 2016 that Florida, 29% of Florida voted before Election Day.
Wow.
Almost 1 out of 3.
Yes.
But think of the impact, not just that has on the presidential race, and it does. No
Absolutely.
question it does. But also the impact that it has on all those down-the-ballot races. I mean, I know people, they don't put their yard signs out till Labor Day. They don't knock on doors until this.
Yeah.
You've got to do it so much earlier.
Yeah.
Everything has to change the way a campaign lays out, and it's up to other people, like people who moderate debates and things. They've got to start having this stuff earlier. You can't wait until mid-October to do this stuff. You can't wait with your lit until mid-October. You can't wait to put out signs until September. You can't. I mean, it totally changes, and no one's talking about the impact on that.
Right.
There's no discussion whatsoever. It's all just an argument about ballot harvesting or I don't know if that's growing ballots on a cornfield or something, or, voter registration, which is, of course, a ruse in Minnesota because you can same day, which is ridiculous.
Right.
Even though I've done it once. 2002, I admit that I registered, same day registered. I didn't cheat, okay, but I
Right.
same day registered. So that, what kind of impact is that having? And if you're voting so early, I mean, you've already, we're sitting here October 1st when we're recording this, Jay.
Yes.
If you've already cast a ballot because you wanted to vote for Trump or you wanted to vote for Biden or Jason Lewis or whatever, I wonder how much research you did on your council, city races, and your commissioners, and your school board, and I mean, or your sheriff. How important are those? Well, that sheriff race would be next time, but
Right.
But I mean, how many times have we talked about how important these races are, and people not taking the time as it is on Election Day?
Well, and even affects like state senators, state representatives,
Absolutely.
because, and here's why. Because you have races where there's a machine already in place, and they can run commercials. They can, get flyers, literature out door to door. They can do things to get an upper hand. Where if you are dealing with, those lower level races, you don't have that advantage. You don't have a ground game. You don't have organizations that are putting stuff out for you. It's you. And often, the few people that you can maybe get together to help you hand it out yourself door to door. And so because of that, it is a much slower process to get your name out there. Now, there are ways that we work with our clients in order to speed that process up, or, to have the kind of foresight to plan ahead. But you know what? Over and above, that's just really not the case.
Well, and that's what I've said. This early voting is such a disservice to the electorate. It's a disservice to, to the candidates.
Yeah.
It really is. If you're challenging an incumbent and you won a primary on August 11th, you've got a month, 5 weeks before people start voting. That's no time at all. And you just get through a primary. You just got through they're tough as it is.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what level you're at. It's hard.
But here's the reality, Jay.
Yeah.
The reality is this. We can complain about the system, and Democrats and Republicans will do what they can to screw it up more. So, what happens in St. Paul is not our call.
Right.
Okay? What we have to do is we have to deal with it the way it is.
Yes.
The reality is, and this is maybe not just for this election cycle, but also for you and I are always thinking years and years ahead. And for the next election cycle, we'll start on November 4th. It's just the truth. It begins that day. And the reality is that people have to start thinking about running that day.
Yes.
Don't they? They have to think about, they can't wait until the summer of 2022 to go, I think I might get in this now. Doesn't work that way. And you and I have preached that for a long time. But with the early voting, you can really see the logistics of how an early start is so vital. And we'll go through a little bit here of that in a minute. But that early start, and I don't mean starting in May. I mean starting right away, the second you can. And again, we talk about joining a commission, and we talk about, which is something you can do anytime. But how compressed that calendar is. Think about it this way. Think about if you were in a school board race. I'll just use our district, 281. You signed up for that from July 31st to August 11th. As of September 20-something,
yes,
people were already voting. So if you just decided to run on July 31st, how in the world can you compress all of that in, 7 weeks?
Yeah, a school district's a big place.
It's like bigger than a Senate district.
Order signs. You got to figure out what you're putting on your lit. You got to come up with a campaign.
You got to have a website, social media pages. You got everything. And before anybody even meets you, they've already voted.
Yep.
So it just takes the calendar and this whole October surprise and this whole, all the old adages in politics just really have to be changed. And the curious thing is that it seems to me that candidates, parties, they're only thinking about the big races, and they're so behind the curve everywhere else.
Oh, absolutely.
So how do we change this attitude, Jay? How do we get ahead of where everybody else is right now, because I see vote early, vote now,
Yes.
vote often. I see both parties pushing it. I get on Facebook and they're asking me if I'm registered to vote. I get on Tweetering and they're register here, check and see if you're registered.
Yeah.
Vote now. There's a sign outside the post office by my house asking me if I'm registered, telling me I can go to City Hall and go vote.
Yeah.
It's like they're pushing and pushing this.
I've received absentee ballot request forms in the mail.
Oh, okay. I think I might have too.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's pushing it.
But what's up with that? Why are they forgetting about all of the important races? I mean, I know why, because they just do. But
well, everything's always about the presidential race, and these years in the presidential years, and everything's always about the governor's race in the off, even years. So it's no surprise to me that they just don't. They don't think about those. Both parties ultimately, at least publicly, care about the top of the ticket and little else. Now, I think the Democrat Party cares a whole lot about the down the ballot races, but because they have a machine in place to try and keep people voting down the ticket, they're not as worried. And this early voting really, definitely where ballot harvesting is legal, they don't care, because they can just tell, hey, here's who you're voting for.
you just drove by the worst yard sign I've ever seen.
Really?
It was small and I couldn't read it.
Yeah, well.
And it was not in a foreign language like La Bamba, okay? So
Yeah.
Well, let me add something. So going forward, we're going to have to make adjustments. And the first adjustment is deciding when you want to run.
Yes.
I mean, that's the first thing that a decision has to be made so much earlier than people are used to.
Yeah.
And if you wait and wait and wait, it just adds to the amount of work you have to do later.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about running for an office in 2022 right now, okay, you got to start that timeline's got to start almost right now, doesn't it? I mean, it's got to be okay. You're thinking about it. You can put some things in place. You can think about issues you want. You don't have to, quote, do anything yet, but you got to be thinking of a plan right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, how many times have we said the odd years set up the even years?
Yes.
There's fundraising that goes on. It's not just in the big races, and there's planning, plotting. I mean, when I go back to when I lived in Crystal, and we both did.
Yes.
Our candidate recruitment, our ideas, our if you want to say our machine, was all planned out in the odd year and executed in the even year.
Yes.
And it's almost like that has to continue. It's like perpetual campaigning. You're just perpetually campaigning all the time.
Right. Well, and unfortunately, that is kind of the way it is. You have to know where you're going in order to get there. It's kind of like, here we are. If I didn't have my GPS going on my phone, we might end up in Sioux City, Iowa, or
Timbuktu, maybe.
Timbuktu. I don't know. We need to get on a ferry, I think, to make it to Timbuktu.
Would we? Okay.
Yeah, it'd be like Titanic in the southern hemisphere. I don't know.
I thought that was in Wisconsin. Okay.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, too. Let me just before we get going a little too far.
Yeah.
What can the state do to change things? Let's just say early voting stays where it is.
Yes.
I mean, what do you think about a June primary? What are the pros and cons to that, Jay?
Well, I mean, that gets people the game a lot earlier, which allows people to be known a lot earlier. I think that is good in one way, I think that it is... I don't know if there are negatives. I mean, obviously you need to have things in motion a lot earlier, because if you don't have things in motion earlier, you're just out of luck.
Well, I think the one negative I could point out a negative is, when do you hold like a state convention? Do you hold that in January? I mean, there's when would caucus have to move? Would
You've got to
see the
endorse
two
people, yeah.
the two parties are going to probably fight that. I think a June primary is a good idea, but I think you're going to have the major parties fighting that pretty hard. But I think a June primary, I know that's been debated. Sign-ups would have to be in March or April because you'd have to have there's a state law that I believe has to have 60 days for a primary, I believe. So there's caveats like that would back everything else up.
Right.
And that's probably the resistance that you'd see to it. I think it's great for the electorate.
Yeah.
I don't care about the party crap.
Right.
But I think you're going to find, I think that's the main resistance to it, is if you have an endorsing convention in May, you can't have a primary in June.
Right.
So...
Yeah,
Can the locals have a different prime? Why they'd have to pay for the election, I suppose.
Yeah, there is that. That would make that a lot more expensive, which is kind of against what we preach because,
share the cost if you can. There's
absolutely, and then you don't have to do appointing. You can do special elections, and they don't cost as much, because you haven't wasted things on odd year elections, and
everything else government wastes money on.
Right. So just
don't have enough podcasts to talk about. So I mean, let's just assume that like I said, that you got to decide you want to run a lot sooner. And I think, more than anything else, we just have to. Those old adages just have to be done away with. The old you started on this day, you don't want to do this too early, blah 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 blah. I mean, so much of that just has to change.
Okay, well, where do you think this is going? I mean, what's the end game of all of this?
Well, I think that the proponents of early voting, mail-in voting, whatever you want, voting, while you're sitting on the toilet, whatever it is, for some reason, there is this group of people who want voting to take place everywhere except on election day at a polling booth.
Right.
I mean, look, I would imagine that it's to somehow control who's voting. I mean, think about it like this: if you can have ballots mailed in a week after an election, okay, that right away raises all sorts of problems.
Yes.
I mean, if you get unsolicited mail-in ballots, you don't know who's filling that out. That's why there's a difference between a mail-in ballot, Jay, and an absentee ballot.
Yes.
An absentee ballot you have to request. Okay.
And that's the way it's always been. I mean, since the Civil War.
Right. I mean, and to have universal mail-ins. I mean, what if you get your neighbor's mail by accident?
Yeah.
Well, what if you do? I mean, what if you get the person who used to live at your house's mail?
Right.
I mean, there's problems the only thing I can think of is that there's some operation out there somewhere that wants to take advantage of this. But I find it strange. I mean, forget COVID for a minute, because that'll be gone at the next election. Why do people want you to vote anywhere except on election day at your polling booth?
Because if there aren't election judges and poll watchers watching what is going on, it leaves so much room for weird things to happen.
So is this all about setting up doubt in the result?
I think it is about fundamentally change. Well, yes, I think it's about doubt.
Depending on who wins, right?
Right, right. But the goal is to get a majority, and if we'll just say there's a certain group of proponents that if they're able to get the presidency, the House, and the Senate, I mean, they're looking at adding Washington D.C., Puerto Rico, and what was the other one?
Other
they were looking
U.S.
at?
possessions.
Yeah,
let's just call
they
it
want to make 3 more states. They want to divide California up into a number of states so that they will always have control
Really?
of the country. I mean, that's one thing, but also just to fundamentally change the way that they do things here in America, because they don't like capitalism. They don't like our Constitution. They don't like the way that we vote. They don't like the Electoral College. They want to get rid of the Electoral College. That's another goal of all of this, is to be able to have everything run on a national popular vote.
Well, there are people on both sides who support that.
Absolutely.
Though. I don't know why, but there are.
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
But
you know.
yes, absolutely.
So the goal is to create a permanent majority. That can't be. I've said this
Right.
before, Jay, and I'll say it again. And I'm not trying to make things too partisan here, but the second Republicans lose Texas and Florida, we're a one-party country.
Yes.
I mean, you may see secession in all parts after that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, because I'm an electoral college proponent. I mean, I think that we're a union of states, and we can't let 3 or 4 big cities decide every election. I mean,
Right.
that's not fair to everybody else. And the Electoral College forces you to campaign in Iowa and in Arizona
Right.
and in states New Hampshire and states you otherwise might not go to. I mean, who would go to Iowa if it was a national popular vote?
Nobody. They'd go to New York, California.
Chicago, Texas, Dallas.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where they would go, and nobody else would ever see anybody of any consequence. And I mean, I'm one that and I mean, I know I'm going off track here, but believes that the senators should not be popularly elected. I don't like that amendment.
No.
I think that representing the states is what the Senate is supposed to do, and I think that's to say the Senate represents the states today. You couldn't be more polar opposite of what the Senate represents.
Right.
It represents anything but. So, I mean, it's just kind of, but yet there is, what is with this trying to insulate people insulate themselves from election results. They tell you they want to listen to the people, yet the actions tell you something that's the opposite.
Right. And how does all of this affect local elections? I mean, that's something we need to talk about too, because yes, it is about, the end game is about the federal elections. Why? And what does that do to local elections? Because, well, they want to govern from the top down. It is just easier to govern that way rather than implement everything at the local level like they're trying to do right now and spend all this money to get city councils and school boards to implement this and that. It's a lot easier if the federal government is just able to say, this is the way it's going to be, and if you want to get any of the funding, this is how you have to do it.
How far?
I mean, haven't we seen that? I mean,
sure, we've seen that for years now. Yeah.
We've talked about Joe Biden, who wants to implement a mask mandate, and so that lets guys like Walsey off the hook, and when Walz did it, it let some of these cities off the hook that were starting to implement some of these mask mandates. So I don't think it's very far-fetched to say that is what the federal government would do under those circumstances.
Right, but let's put it to a more permanent issue, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about something. Can you see the education department mandating A, B, C, D, and E? Can we see,
Yes.
certain other kinds of building standards and codes and things like that being mandatory for county and city governments?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, you're right. The elections have consequences. Higher up elections, I mean.
Yeah.
They all have consequences. Having said that, well, we always preach the election closest to you is the one you can control the most.
Yes.
So we still stand by that while we can. How about the police movement? I mean, another thing Vice President Biden has talked about is mandating training. And
Yes.
I mean, what does he know about being a police officer? I mean, with all due respect, I mean, I don't know that he could tell you the first thing about being a police officer.
No.
And why is the federal government implementing something that is a local issue?
Well, and we've already seen the House try to pass something.
Yeah.
So if he were president, he would sign it.
Yeah, I mean, if it got to his desk, yeah. Probably. But one of my fears, and we saw this in Minnesota, was both parties going along with
absolutely.
reforms from the top down. Instead of letting, every police department is different. Every city is different. A one-size-fits-all strategy is one of the big things that worries me about top-down legislation. Is the assuming every police department or every community has the same issues as Minneapolis is just beyond ignorant. So, I mean, we go back to the early voting now, which again, I can't emphasize this enough, changes so many things about campaigning.
Yeah.
And you're right, it changes a lot of things about governing.
Yes.
I mean, it really has a double whammy effect. So, I mean, we're looking at, voters voting 6 weeks before Election Day with unsolicited. I mean, think about it like this. We talk about ballots and, getting lost in the mail or you're grabbing the wrong person's mail. Imagine in the presidential election, that may not make a difference.
Yeah.
In a city council election?
Oh, yes.
I mean, we had Garrett Christensen on the show last year. Great show.
Yeah.
He's a city councilman from Elk River.
I'd look up the episode when I'm driving.
Yeah, I look up the episode, but it's dark. He won his election by 2 votes.
Yes.
Now imagine if 2 mail-in votes were missing or unsolicited or whatever. I mean, somebody voted for their neighbor. I don't know. It's back to why? Let me ask you another fundamental, because I think the opponents of universal mail-in balloting, as always, do a horrible job of articulating this position. I am not against an absentee ballot that is requested by a citizen. I have voted that way several times.
Yes.
I'm not against early voting if it is close to Election Day. If you want to go into City Hall the Monday before, and I personally don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with anybody just getting a ballot mailed to them who didn't ask for it. I have a problem with walking into City Hall 6 weeks before an election and voting. I have a problem with same-day registration. I have a problem with vouching. I have a problem with a lot of these things we're talking about. And if they didn't affect election outcomes, we wouldn't be arguing about this. But why are opponents of universal? Why don't they make the arguments? Why can't they differentiate between an absentee? Even the president couldn't do it.
Right.
Articulate that there's an absentee ballot that is requested by a citizen, and there is a universal mail-in ballot, which is just what is being proposed is to just be sent to you.
Yes. Well, and there's so many problems with that, and as we've seen with some of the ballot harvesting, and I don't know if you saw the Project Veritas video or not, what you think of that.
I have not seen that.
Okay. He was with a guy in Minneapolis that had a car full of ballots.
I heard about it, but I did not watch it.
The ballots were in the car, and some of them were open, so they were obviously tampered with. They were supposedly gotten from some, I don't know if they were assisted living or they were older folks, places like in Cedar Riverside neighborhood. There were some where they said they had paid $300 to so I don't know. Is it the truth? Is it not?
I'm sure it'll be thoroughly investigated by our local media.
Yeah, well, no, it won't. But
yeah, I meant that as sarcasm.
But that's a practice that's allowed. I mean, our Supreme Court here in Minnesota outlawed it and said that it's not constitutional, but they allow it in California. You know, and if you have that kind of thing where people can just go help, I'm putting that in air quotes as much as I can when I'm driving here, that people can go help people fill out their ballots or go collect ballots for them and say, hey, we'll make sure these get in, or people that wouldn't vote anyways, and, you know, paying for those ballots. I mean, you could go find all the people. It's in the Secretary of State records who's registered, who's not registered. So if you're sending out mail-in ballots to people that are not registered voters, they don't care if you take their ballot. They would gladly trade it for something.
Yeah. Well, and also you bring up things like old folks' homes and things. That's ripe for abuse.
Yes.
You know, I mean, it just is.
Yes.
And I don't know why. I don't know. Here's the thing. Obviously, because this has been so hotly debated,
Yes.
there is an advantage or a disadvantage to somebody with this. And it bothers me so much that, because I think we are setting us up where no one is going to believe election results anymore.
Yeah.
One side wins, the other side's going to charge fraud. I mean, we're back to Florida 2000 again.
Right.
This is worse than hanging chads.
Yeah, it definitely has the ability to be, because all of a sudden, you know, you find some ballots in a waste paper basket, or you
Back to Frank and Coleman.
Yeah. You know, in the trunk of a car or in a river or whatever.
Church pew.
Yeah, you I don't know, you know, at what point are those real ballots? At what point are those manufactured ballots? At what point do you include them? Do you not include them? Do you disenfranchise no one? Do you disenfranchise? I mean, what's the test? What's the standard you hold them to? And it is such a slippery slope.
Well, and, you know, having every state do it differently, having every Secretary of State making up the rules as we go, having, I mean, you know, having a countrywide election with all those different rules everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that, you know, I'm all for local control, but, I mean, it can't be so crazy and so different everywhere. This is voting. Why do we make this so damn complicated?
Well, I mean, we kind of answered our own question already. You know,
I'm asking that rhetorically.
Rhetorically, yes. Well, let me ask you this then: with early voting, are we as early as we're going to get, or are they going to try to push this even earlier?
No, I say it goes earlier. I say
like all the way to the day after the primary.
Again, it's all about the top of the ticket, and
Yes.
when the top of the ticket is settled, you know, that's what gets all the media attention. So no, I don't think we're as early as possible. And that I was going to bring this up when we talked about moving the primary up. If you have a June primary, are people going to start voting in July? I mean, what's to stop it? I mean, I know it sounds absurd, but what's to stop a state from saying, okay, it's June 10th, we know all of our candidates now.
Yeah.
So
Voting's open.
yeah, come on down to City Hall and vote tomorrow. You're going to know presidential candidates by then.
Yeah.
You're going to know gubernatorial candidates by then. And that's all that anybody cares about.
Right.
So, you know, there you go.
Right.
No, I don't. I think if anything, we're going to get to a point where a majority of people are not voting election day. I mean, that's the trend it's a slow trend. But it seems like year after year, it's funny, I find myself guilty of it sometimes.
Yeah.
2018, I was guilty of it. 2016, I voted on election day. But 2018, I did not. I did vote about a week early. I went down to City Hall and I voted. Part of it was I had a new job. I mean, there's a couple I wouldn't have done it under normal circumstances. But, you know, no, the short answer is I don't think it'll ever be early enough for some. And it's not fair to the people running. Like I said, it's a disservice to the country. I mean, why do you have a debate in October if you can vote in July? It literally doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense. But I think I think we're going to get to a point where not letting somebody vote early is suppression.
Yeah.
Not letting people vote when they're sitting at home is racist. I mean, we're going to get to that point where that's going to be deflected with charges like that. You're already hearing it. What's racist about voting on election day?
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea.
I don't get it either. Last time I checked, they let everybody in.
Yeah, they certainly did last time I voted. And nobody, you know, and I'm one that, you know, I oppose, you know, things like vouching and things, which we really need to take a hard look at. And, you know, and online voter registration, I think, is a touchy thing. What is so hard about walking down to City Hall one time,
right,
and registering to vote?
Yeah, I mean, not much, really.
I mean, if you really want to vote, don't you owe it to put some effort into it?
Yeah,
and show that you're serious.
That's the thing. And so I wonder, with a lot of these ballots that are mailed out, if they don't end up in the garbage, or, you know, they sit on somebody's doorstep for 3 months or whatever, you know. But to go back to what we were talking about before, with just a lot of the manipulation, I mean that's really what it's about. I don't know if you looked into what Mike Bloomberg has done at all down in Florida.
Doesn't surprise me.
No, but because of the laws they have in Florida, he could pay some heavy fines for that.
I think he'd be
it's
smarter.
supposed to be a felony.
Yeah, what an idiot.
Yeah.
God, he's stupid.
For our listeners maybe who didn't follow that, there was a law that they passed recently in Florida that allows felons that have done their time and paid their debt to society to vote again.
Yeah, a second chance bill.
Which is great. I agree with it. But, and this, I think, is awesome. They need to have fully paid their debt to society, including paying back any fees or fines or things that they still owe.
Yeah.
Now, Mike Bloomberg went down there and went through the rolls of people, figured out, and paid the fines and the fees of people that were only A, black, or B, Hispanic, and C, were already registered voters, knowing full well that they would overwhelmingly support Joe Biden. And there was like, what, 32,000?
I never heard a number, but
it was like 32,000 people that they were paying on. Oh, and it had to be $1,500 or less.
Yeah, but just remember something. Forget the Biden-Trump race for a minute. How about those local races?
Right.
How about those city council races?
Well, it trickles down because what you look at, you know, especially, you know, when you're looking at all these tricks like ballot harvesting and things like that, you have a Democrat Party, especially in this state, and I know, keeping it nonpartisan, but they do endorse local candidates, and you see it all the time on their literature, on their signs. And so you have somebody come along that is stumping for that party. Okay, let's fill this out for president. Let's fill this out for state house. Let's fill this out for city council. Let's fill this out for school board, because we know who we support already.
Yeah,
it's going to trickle down.
It's part of the machine.
Yes.
Part of the machine. Tammany Hall around here. Yeah. Yeah, it's depressing, and but I think, again, the goal, it's sort of like, for some people, the goal with income tax to get to where 51% don't pay anything. They have no skin in the game. They have no reason to support a tax cut.
Right.
It's the same thing. We're going to get to a point where half the people are doing everything, half the people aren't doing anything. Now, here's the other part. When we talk about local elections too, we talk about the calendar, and we talk about this. How is a local candidate, Jay, supposed to campaign? I mean, other than changing the calendar here, and that's very important, What's a local candidate supposed to do in September and October if all the people have already voted?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean,
How can you hand out a lit piece?
right?
But you can't handle everything out in July. I mean, it's.
No, it changes the game completely, and it really becomes about who has the most money, I think. Because at that point, I mean, you're looking at, okay, there's no more October surprise. There's no more, I can't use this strategy this late in the game. So you spend all your best ammo early, right? And then you have to figure out a way to keep people engaged and keep attention on you for the next 1, 2, 3 months.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? You have to have money to be able to buy Facebook ads, to be able to buy Google ads, to be able to put out literature and mail it out. I mean, I'm getting something from Joe Biden in the mail, and I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent, but I'm definitely not a Democrat.
Third party group sending it to you.
I'm receiving something from him in the mail every day. Every day. So
I haven't received anything from him.
Really?
Nothing, not a thing.
Oh my goodness. Every day.
I bet it's CD5 that he's targeting, getting out the base.
Yeah, probably. But again, it becomes about the money, at that point. And so when you get it down to these local races where nobody has any, but
or has to spend their own.
At that point, that's when the unions start kicking in money. That's when the local Democrat organization kicks in some money. And it gives them that little burst that they need to maybe get, a little attention towards, in the last.
It's the third party group. It's no different than the Alliance for Better Minnesota picking up where DFL funding dropped short. I mean, it's no different than that. And there are groups on both sides that do it. I mean,
there are. I received some stuff but not much from the other side.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that the Democrats are better at the machine game, and Republicans are better at other things. But I think the Dems are better at party discipline and things like that. So Jay, I mean, just to kind of wrap this up here, I mean, you're thinking about running for office locally. I think the biggest adjustment in the future is your calendar. Yeah. And it's time, and I'm going to throw out some more solutions, Jay.
Okay.
It is time to, if people are going to vote this early, we got to move debates up.
Yeah.
We've got to move primary dates up. We've got to move sign-ups. They've got to be earlier too. You've got to make a decision, in the winter months almost, what you're going to do.
Yes.
It can't wait until June. Sure as hell can't wait till July or August. The calendar is just going to beat you out. I mean, how many times have we said this before? That your biggest problem in campaigns, they run out of days.
Yeah.
They just do. So, you really got to change. And just like we've said before, some of the old ways of you said the October surprise or Labor Day. The campaign doesn't really start till Labor Day. Oh, no. And I also think we're at a point of no return on this. I don't see the pendulum may stay where it is, but I don't see it swinging back.
No, I don't think you put this genie back in the bottle.
And I think both Republicans and Democrats, I mean, Republicans are encouraging people to early vote too. I mean, it's all over their stuff. It's everywhere to go vote, get out and vote twice, vote 8 times, you change your clothes, change your name, and vote again. I mean, it's everywhere.
Right.
So I don't know that this can be walked back, but what I think what can happen is some reasonable limitations can be put on it.
Yeah, I think so, and it's going to be hard to do because there is a specific group of people that is going to be pushing for it to be, not politically speaking here, but just in a general sense, more liberal, where, we're going to keep pushing the day it starts back. We're going to keep, adjusting the way that you're able to vote, where you're able to vote, how you're able to vote. These are things that we're going to have to figure out how we're going to battle these things, because it's not going to come through sitting back on our laurels and just saying, oh, they're not going to do anything else. No, they will.
Yeah, and in opposition to it will be racist and fascist and voter suppression and all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
We're going to have a Georgia gubernatorial race. I mean, Florida Evans, she still thinks she won that race. And they've counted every ballot 900 times.
She was 50,000 short.
I think she was more than that. I mean, look, that's not in a box somewhere in the trunk of somebody's car.
No.
Okay, I mean, and by the way, Georgia is a state that has an automatic recount law, and this did not meet that criteria.
Right.
Minnesota, it's half a point. I don't know what it is in Georgia, but I know it did not reach that for Governor Kemp. So,
right.
It's just, but again, isn't that what this is partly all about? Creating the aura that he's illegitimate.
Yes.
Even though there's no evidence that supports it, if you just say it enough times.
Well, and that's the thing. Look at Hillary Clinton saying to Joe Biden, don't you concede under any circumstances. And how much have they spent on how many lawyers already? And they've already brought lawsuits into the court for this election, and it hasn't even happened yet.
They're suing beforehand. I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I've never seen anything like this. And
if President Trump pulls this off, it's just... But again, if he does, are we going to get to the same... Are we going to hear the same things again? You know what I mean? I mean, is it going to be, he didn't really win, so-and-so was suppressed, blah, blah, blah.
He's got to win. Like, he's got to have probably 350 electoral votes to not have a challenge.
Well, I don't think either candidate can get that.
Yeah, I know.
Just the way the landscape is.
Exactly.
All right, Jay. Well, it is what it is. I just send out a warning to candidates and future candidates that you got to make your plans early. If you've been thinking about running, get started on something and don't wait until the spring or summer of 2022 to get your ass in gear. You've got to do it much earlier than that. And you got to plan for things like early voting. And that means talking to seniors and people like that. People who are more likely to vote early, we know who they are.
Yeah.
And that you got to get in front of those audiences.
Exactly.
So, Jay, why don't you, I'll even give you a worse introduction than normal. SOS, the sign-off sermon. Let's have at it.
Our election system enshrines one of our most basic, fundamental rights as Americans. And that is to choose our representation. To be able to select someone to represent us that best enshrines our values. Unfortunately, we're at a time in America where we have people that they don't go and fight for us when they go to Washington, when they go to St. Paul. We don't know enough about the people that we send. We don't know enough about the people that we send to City Hall. But yet, there are choices that need to be made. Choices that affect our day-to-day lives in very real ways. But yet all too often, we become team players. It's like, oh, this person's Republican, this person's Democrat, this person is Libertarian, this person is Constitution Party, and we select the people that fit those labels more than we do the people that have the ideas that are going to move America forward, because we don't pay attention to ideals. Not really. We listen to what a politician says and pay very little attention to what politicians do. case in point is our president. You know, we have people on both sides of the aisle that are like, no way, no way, no way, no way, no way. But yet, look what he's done for religious freedom. Look what he's done, you know, in the area of lowering taxes. And yes, it's been for middle class people as well, even more so, you know, middle and lower class people. It has not been, I mean, of course, the rich benefited from that too, but the percentage points are way lower. Anyways, that's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is that we pay attention to what people say and not what they do. And unfortunately, that has this team mentality brought us to a point where there's a whole lot of people that are backing people that ask to represent us, but they want to tear down everything that we love. Now, you may not get passionate about elections. You may do it because it's your duty. But let me tell you, it is that right that underpins everything else that you do love. Because let me tell you, if you bring a bunch of people in and you elect them and they want to pack the Supreme Court, it's going to affect your Second Amendment rights. And we've seen it in the past with things like the Brady Bill, and you know, they will find a way to curb it as much as possible. And with that side of the aisle, they are about activism, and they are about bending the rules, and the ends justify the means. Well, we believe a little something different. The means are everything. You can't end up at the right result if you used shady practices to get there. It undermines everything that we believe in. So what do we do? Because we've got our electoral system hanging in the balance, where there's so much confusion thrown in to the mix that I think we stand in real trouble if we don't figure out how to put some structure around this. We didn't even bring up ranked choice voting tonight, but that is another way that our electoral system has been under fire. There's brought more confusion instead of more clarity. So whether it's ranked choice voting, or whether it is early voting, or whether it is mail-in voting, or whether it is throwing, getting rid of postmarks, like in Pennsylvania, being able to throw ballots into a collection bin for days after an election. There's one place that was even talking about 17 days afterwards, as long as it's postmarked. Well, at some point, there's something about the American experience where you go vote, you go home and you watch the returns. And they're trying to get rid of that. And they're trying to change our country fundamentally in every way possible. And if they can take over the election system, we are in trouble. Because we will be run exclusively by those that are looking to take over and fundamentally change our country. That we will never get our way of living back. that the good old days, they're going to be the good old days. They ain't ever coming back. But we have a voice in that right now. And we have one election cycle to turn this around, at least right now. And then if we make our stand now, I guarantee you it is going to be another 4 years until another equally important election that we cannot, until we have thwarted this entirely, rooted it out of our system, rooted these people out of our system, we will have to fight this really every 2 years, every election cycle, until we have defeated it. So why don't we just start defeating it now? Let's get through this. Let's get out there and vote for the people that are going to protect our election integrity. And then let's start doing something about it. Let's not give it lip service. Let's not talk about what we'd like to see. Let's actually start making some changes. Let's start at the local level where we have the ability to say, okay, here's how we're going to do this. We're going to run special elections. We're not going to do appointments so that the people get to choose their representation. And here's when we're going to do these special elections. Other than that, we're going to vote at the same time as any state and federal elections so that we're not paying extra money on our regular elections. We're only paying extra money for the special elections. That way, we're saving the people of the city or the school district money. And so we've got to look at ways to normalize this. There is a reason that there is such a strict, narrow interpretation of or there should be, of how we cast votes. It is not to discourage people from voting. It is not to keep people from voting. It is to make sure that there is ironclad integrity in our system. Because if we don't, if people can question the results, if people can question our entire system, then what do we have? There has to be a basic fundamental set of rules that we all learn from and that we all operate under. That's the only way freedom works. Freedom isn't just willy-nilly anarchy, people do what you want. No. It is the ability to operate freely under a basic set of rules that governs at a basic level our actions. So that people aren't killing one another, so that there aren't riots in the streets, so that people can feel safe and secure in their persons, in their possessions, in their intellectual property, that they can make a living to pursue happiness. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Those are the three rights enshrined to us by our Creator that cannot be taken away. And it is our government's job to protect those. But let me tell you, when you have an elite group that starts messing with the rules, that starts shifting things here, shifting things there, so that there are no longer free and fair elections, but yet rigs the system so that they're perpetually in power. That's not liberty. It isn't going to give you the ability to pursue happiness. And that's not any kind of a life. That's going to become servitude real quick. So what do? It's time, America. It is time, Minnesota, because we can't sit back anymore and allow this to happen to us. We can't just say it doesn't matter, somebody will take care of it. Somebody else has got it. Somebody else will take care of it. I don't need to worry about it. No, you do need to worry about it. You do need to take care of it, because who will if you don't? We need guardians. Where are the watchmen on the wall that are going to sit there and see the enemy coming far off and say, here it is, we have some of those. But we need more people crying out. We need more people that are ready to be called to, I hate to say called to arms, but called to arms. Not physical arms, not guns and knives and torches and machetes, no. But the truth. By using the truth to set us free. By being able to stand vigilant and say, no, not today. I'm not letting you do this to my country. I'm not going to let you, whether you run for an office, whether you get on an advisory commission, whether you go to City Hall or your county board or your school board offices, and you sit in meetings and say, no, I see what you're doing. This is not good. This is not going to happen under my watch. You let your neighbors know. You have neighborhood meetings. You do what you need to do to wake people up. Because if we don't wake people up, it's all over. If you see things happening in your community that threaten electoral integrity, we want you to get a hold of us because we will shout it out loud and clear. You can do that at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That is commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we will be sure to let everybody know because we're all learning together here. And I know for a fact that there are enough of you that think like I do, that thinks like Andrew does, that it is not going to be where we lay down and die. I'm not going to lay down and die. You're going to have to take me out. And I know there's enough of you that think like us, that you are willing to put it all on the line to make sure that we preserve the Republic. So we're going to be back in another week, and I hope you're ready, because it is onward and upward from here. Please share this podcast and get the word out. We have to mobilize. We have to move forward. We've done our part, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work.